Elevation Nation. As we always say, tonight we have an incredible treat for you all. Someone who we got connected with, of course, by another elevator, per usual. This network, this nation just keeps on growing. But with this guest, we have a lot of interesting similarities that we're excited to dive into. Ayomi Samaraweera, welcome to Elevation Nation. I am so excited to have you on the podcast and welcome you into our incredible community.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are excited. I know you're coming all the way across the whole country. You're in Washington, which is amazing. Never been to Washington. I'm sure it's a pretty incredible place. I hear they have some really cool like mountains and stuff like that. But besides the point, Ayomi, we're pumped. I mean, just looking at, your Instagram, your TikTok, the stuff you're doing, like the things you've done, I think we're going to learn a lot. Elevation Nation's certainly in for a treat. So we're thrilled to have you. But we do start every episode of Elevation Nation with an elevator pitch. You're at Techstars, I saw. So I'm sure you have your elevator pitch down. Ayomi, let's hear it.
My elevator pitch for myself.
Let's start with yourself. Let's start with yourself, and then we'll go into the business.
If you asked me for a 30-second elevator pitch on my startup, I could recite that in like word for word. Elevator pitch for myself, recovering management consultant, DM'd and got my job at TikTok, fell in love with TikTok, full-time founder, part-time creator.
That was quick elevator. Obviously, we're going to dive deeper into your story because your first line, I don't know if people caught that, but I'm going to reiterate it. Recovering management consultant. And we're going to dive into that world of consulting because from my intro, Elevation Nation, that is the tie, that is the similarity that Parker and I have with Ayomi. And I want to get into that whole story. But first, I want to dive into childhood, Ayomi, for a minute. Probably something that you don't get asked a lot on podcasts. But we think that your mindset as a young adult is really shaped by a lot of your childhood. So I want to go back to little Ayomi for a minute here. What did you want to be when you were growing up? I'm sure it wasn't management consultant, but I could be wrong.
No, I had 3 careers that I was obsessed with. I first wanted to be a vet, and I used to love this like TV show called Animal Hospital, and I just really loved animals. I still do love animals. So I really wanted to be a vet. At some point, I wanted to be a fashion designer. I think that's probably when I got into clothes and fashion, I guess. And then at some point, I wanted to be a brain surgeon, which honestly, I have no idea where that came from. But that stayed for a good few years. And I used to have this little operating kit, which was kind of like a game, and pretend to do that. I was really, really into that for quite some time. But yeah, none of those careers came through, to be honest with you.
Is that game Operation?
Yes, Operation.
Yeah, where you like get the little
And it
tweezers,
buzzes you.
and if you hit the edge, you're bad. You're bad at Operate. I was bad at that game. My hands, my eyes, not very coordinated as well. Even though
I
I
think
played.
I was bad. I was bad at that game too, but I still wanted to be a brain surgeon. But
Can you imagine, every brain surgeon today, never hit the sides, it never buzzed. They were just prodigies, even with Operation.
right.
That's awesome. So, I mean, obviously you talk about some fun things there, and you grow up and you realize, oh, okay, maybe brain surgery is not for me. What moment was that where you're like, these 3 dreams that you thought that you were going to fall into kind of led to a different course?
Honestly, I think those dreams faded quite quickly, I would say. They weren't something I obsessed about. And honestly, I didn't actually give my career much thought, if I'm being really honest. And I wish I maybe had done that sooner, because some of the decisions you make early on really shape the direction of the path you can actually take. Sometimes you get to a point where you want to do something, but you realize you've kind of missed the boat because you either don't have X or Y and you can't really go back. So I didn't give it much thought, if I'm being brutally honest. I went to uni, which I guess you guys call college. Went to uni, did a very generic degree of business and management studies, because I was like, I don't really know what to do, but business and management, that sounds like a steady, thing to do, and gives me hopefully some more options. And it was only during university where I started thinking about, okay, like, what am I actually going to do with this degree? Like, what are my career options and paths? What do they look like?
So I think that story will resonate with a lot of Elevation Nation, because I think many of us, we go to school, perhaps we go to uni, and we just follow a career path that our parents had, that the
Right.
successful neighbor had. We're like, well, they made good money and they seem comfortable, so I'm just going to do it. And I think
Exactly.
that's probably where school and college misses the boat, is they don't really allow you the opportunity to try careers at a young age. And so I think with that, the reason why I'm talking about this is I certainly fell into that similar trap where I got a very generic business degree as well. And I said, well, what does a generic business degree get me? What's more generic, than consulting, right? Like you
Right.
kind of just go in and you learn how to do group projects. It's essentially what you do for your first like 3 years in consulting. So I want to talk about that for a minute. You then decided to get into consulting. You were a almost lifer at this big four company.
My God,
What were
yeah.
those first couple years like?
I actually feel embarrassed that I was an almost lifer. I think that's my biggest realization. It was something I used to strive to be. I was that person.
Wow.
I'm going to go from
Wow.
intern to partner. And now I feel deeply embarrassed that I even had that thought, to be honest with you.
Oh my God. All right, so let's talk about that. So, you get into it, you're staff at the bottom, I'm sure you crushed it. You're on the partner track. You go become a senior, then a manager. You're managing people. Oh, you're getting in front of clients. I'm sure you're crazy good at presenting and problem solving, obviously. And then it gets probably really, really hard and really time consuming, right?
Yeah, I mean that was the journey. I really hustled. Like every trick in the book, I was doing it. I was hustling my way up. I was getting early promotions. I moved countries twice with the company. They sent me from London to Dubai, Dubai to Boston, Boston to New York. So I was moving, which is awesome, which is probably honestly a big part of the reason I stayed for so long because life was good. Um, and it was less about it being hard because I actually think it was always hard. Like I think if you wanted to excel in consulting, you knew what it took, and it took just grinding, like the hours, doing the work, networking, internal work. Like it's just a grind. It was less about it getting too hard. It was more like, what is the point? Like, what is the bigger purpose, bigger vision? Is the rest of my life just going to simply be making really nice slides and selling work companies probably don't even need? Like, is that going to be the rest of my life? And again, this happened during the pandemic as well, which I think people were reassessing life choices and decisions they had made. I was sent home from client site in March 2020, and I hadn't been in my house for more than like a week in 2.5 years. I've been commuting from Boston to St. Louis for 2 years, and 1 week a month for the last 9 months I'd been in Germany on the client site. And I hadn't really been at home for a very long time. And I was like, wow, like, it's kind of nice to live in my own house that I pay rent for and to not live out of my suitcase and to see my family and my friends. And I mean, I didn't have a social life because it was the pandemic, but to have free time in the evenings and things like that. So it was more of an epiphany, like a mindset shift and an epiphany versus it got too hard. So then I wanted to bail out.
Can we dive into that a little bit deeper for a minute? And maybe we'll get a little introspective, because I have a theory that many overachievers from like grade school, high school, and college are incredible Big Four consultants. Because to your
100%.
point, like okay, we'll see. Parker might have to cut some of this out, but we thrive off impressing other people and pushing it to the max and being like, I'm going to prove that I can be better and get promoted earlier and sell more deals and whatever, work your way up. And so we thrive off of that. Sure, you sometimes make like a little more money, but it's not like they're quadrupling your salary for you getting promoted slightly earlier. It's that inner drive that we all want to impress ourselves, to prove that we're better than other people. And there's a clear path up to the top. There are exact levels that you have to hit to get to partner. And so for, I think, a lot of young people, they see that and they go, well, I need to prove that I am very smart and very good and an overachiever. And they see the top and they grind it out and they blink and they're a partner. I see you smiling and nodding. Is that kind of how you felt as well?
And again, I mean, Sam I couldn't have said it better myself. It's like you're speaking to my soul here.
Yeah.
And I'm smiling to myself because that was me. And I'm so embarrassed. Like it's the only word I can choose. I am actually embarrassed for my former self because I was that, you know, quote unquote, you know, high performer, high overachiever. And I didn't do it for the work. I did it for getting those Bravo awards because I didn't even care about the money. I cared about like the piece of feedback, like the written note from the partner. And, you know, I cared about the early promotion, not because of the pay, because the pay honestly didn't go up that much. I cared because it just meant I was better, quote unquote, better. And that I think is it's not a good place to be in, where your self-worth is so closely attributed to the quote success you have in your career and specifically in consulting is just not a good place to be.
It is not a good place to be. You know, I'm not a senior manager, at least, you know, we'll see if I end up going that route. I'm a manager now, you know, but I've been at the firm since I graduated college, and Sam and I talk very openly about our struggles when we first started, and talking about what you were just mentioning, Ayomi, about how we attributed a lot of our self-worth into how we did in our job. And what was really challenging for me in particular in my first 2 years in just life after college, like you're not just navigating your first job, you're navigating like the real world, like relationships, how to, you know, manage your money, pay rent, this and that. I attributed all of my self-worth from work, and that translated into my personal life. And my personal life was shit because I felt as if I wasn't meeting my own expectations in the workplace. But what's even crazier is when you attribute your success based off things you can't control, right? Like how someone feels about you or that review that you got that you were surprised about, right? And if we attribute our self-worth around things that we can't even control at all, man, we're going to be waiting around for a pretty long time. And so that's when Sam and I got together. We're like, wow, we're pretty miserable. What can we do about it? That's where Elevation Nation was born. We wanted to meet people like you who have been through different and similar circumstances at the same time, going through that stuff. So obviously there was a point where you were like, yeah, I'm done. Let's hear it. What's the oh shit moment?
Well, it was a few moments because also I had the complication that I was on a visa that was tied to the company. So I couldn't, even if I wanted to leave, I couldn't leave without, I guess, being deported maybe. Didn't want that to happen. So I was fortunate that actually my green card came in February 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And then suddenly I had like this passport to freedom where I could just go and start interviewing. So again, I wouldn't have been able to leave if I hadn't have had that. So that was kind of like the opening, the catalyst. But the spark really came in the pandemic. You know, March 2020, I downloaded TikTok. And it really was as simple as that. You know, I grew up on Instagram and Facebook. And I remember scrolling endlessly on TikTok, thinking I've not been so addicted / excited about a platform in so long. And I ended up cold messaging someone at TikTok, asking them for a job. And 3 months later, I quit consulting, like 8 years of my entire career, and joined TikTok. So it was just more one of those moments where I was like, I really want to make a change. This is not the life I want to have in 10 years' time. I'm getting no fulfillment or happiness from this. I also don't think I'm learning anything anymore. And by the way, I have a lot of great things to say about the Big Four and starting your career there. But I'd been there for 8+ years, and I didn't think I was actually learning anything net new. I knew how to get things done there in a very specific Big Four way. And I just didn't want to stop learning. So yeah, I pieced out and went to TikTok.
I'm glad you mentioned a couple of the reasons why you left, because I think a lot of times people hear investment banking, Big Four consulting, whatever the normal corporate job is, and think, oh, you just got burned out. You were too tired to grind anymore. And sure, that's probably part of it, right? Like no one wants to grind and be traveling for 2 years straight. But I think to your point of, I wanted to learn new things. And thank you for mentioning you have a lot of Big Four specialized knowledge. Like, I feel like that's 50% of my brain now is specialized things that only work here. So learning more, you mentioned fulfillment. There were a lot of different areas and places you could have gone to learn something new. I mean, you could have gone and become a farmer and like gotten fulfillment and learned something. Like, why did you choose to stay in the tech kind of world and go to a startup, which at the time, I mean, you went from a very solid, stable company to what at the time was a little more risky in a startup? What kind of drove you towards taking that risk in that direction?
My gosh, a couple of things I guess come to mind. I just think I knew I wanted to go. By the way, I had no tech experience. I also worked in government and public sector, and then my last client was life sciences, and I was actually literally working with farmers. So it's funny that you use that example.
That's awesome.
So I didn't have any tech experience, and by the way, that's a huge mistake. Anyone who's at the Big Four now, go seek out the experience that you want to have. I did not do that, and that left a massive gap. It was really hard for me to convince TikTok to hire me because they were like, you've never worked in tech before. Like, what makes you think you can do this job? And obviously I wasn't doing a technical role, but I didn't have a background in the industry. And my answer was that I'm a consultant, like I'll just learn it on the job. Like that's what I do. I'm programmed to do that and learn quickly. But ultimately I wish I had tech experience when I was still at EY. But no, I wanted to go into tech. I thought it was a really exciting space. And as I'm a millennial, I grew up on social media. So working in consumer social was definitely something I just was passionate about. And I don't know, I think there's moments in time. There are companies that change the world, like truly. There are companies that are once in a generation. And I felt that way about TikTok. And again, there's many different things to say about TikTok, but I think it has truly shaped social media. Short form content did not exist pre-TikTok, pre-Musically. And it was a really exciting time. And I was like, if I'm going to pivot my career, and it was a big pivot, right? I took a downgrade in my role title. I took a $30,000 pay cut. Those are not easy decisions to make when you're used to having certain income and status and lifestyle and those sort of things. But I was like, if I'm going to really do a pivot, it's worth going sideways or downwards to be able to like come up on top later on down the line.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. So you felt so connected to not only the mission of what was happening at TikTok, but I assume that you got a lot of motivation because you felt stagnant and you wanted to make that change and you wanted new excitement and you wanted to be able to be in a sexy, hot, not up and coming, really, honestly, just a really great industry. I think that's incredible. And so you make that pivot. Was it everything you wanted it to be, though?
Was it everything I wanted? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
My
Hell yeah.
yeah, 100%. Like I honestly like that pivot has been like the making of me, like as a human in my
Wow.
career, in the people, the people I have around me. Yeah, it was really, really eye-opening. And I think as well, when I joined TikTok, it really was a startup. I joined when they were like 20 months old. There were only 500 people in the US working at the company. When I left 2 years later, there were 5,500.
Wow.
So like that's the scale of growth that I was able to be a part of when I was there. So it really did feel small, especially coming from a Big Four.
I was gonna say, did you at least get to pick the nice desk, but like you were working from home because it was the pandemic, so
Yeah, entirely remote. I only went to the offices in Times Square. In fact, the office is actually around the corner from the EY Times Square office, which is quite ironic. But I only went to the office twice in my time there.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's an incredible office though.
what a change though. I mean,
Incredible.
yes, new industry, new title, new opportunity, big pivot, new learning experience. But how about your quality of life? Going from traveling nonstop, and maybe you were working different hours as well, but to be able to almost change the way you live in a sense. Did you feel that as well, or was it just in the
I'm
work itself?
no, I'm smiling because I would say my quality of life was worse when I joined TikTok.
Interesting. Okay.
But again, I say this all with love for TikTok.
Sure.
Okay? The role, the company was the making of me. I joined at a very critical time for the company. I joined 1 month prior to the administration's executive order, and my role was crisis
You had a
communications.
couple things to do, I think. Yeah.
So it was a very difficult time for the company for the entire 2 years I was at said company. So work-life balance was definitely tough, but again, being a consultant sets you up to work in these sort of environments. You have to learn on your feet, quickly build relationships, get things done, know how to prioritize, and churn out work and grind. Like consulting teaches you the grind.
Yeah.
And then when you apply it in a startup type tech environment, it sort of supercharges your growth career wise and like work content wise as well. So, yeah, it's definitely different. But at the very least, because I joined during the pandemic, I was at home and I did feel as if I was more connected to my friends, my friends, my husband, being in my house. Like it sounds so trivial, but being in your house and not living out of a suitcase is really nice. I've been on the road for many, many years and it's quite unsettling and you're always constantly tired. I wouldn't want to go out on the weekends because I was so exhausted from commuting during the week, which is sad because the weekends was my only time to catch up with my friends and family. So it was definitely a nicer environment just to manage my own lifestyle. I manage my own schedule as well.
It's amazing to hear just from your story, Ayomi. Like, you know, obviously Sam mentioned at the beginning, there's similarities here and there. But it's just cool to hear a story of someone who was in a position, and I'm not saying Sam and I actually really enjoy our jobs where we're at right now in consulting. And it's really cool to hear from you, and I'm sure Elevation Nation appreciates this too, that someone has made an entire pivot in their life that has worked out totally in their favor and has made not only their life at work better, but their life in general better. And I think the main takeaway that I have from that is you can make the change, right? You can't take back anything that's happened in the past, but you can totally shape the future. And I think that's really inspiring to hear your story and how you went about it. But I know there's more because TikTok, you said, was only a 2-year journey, right? And that ended, 2 years ago? Last year?
Last summer, so just over a year ago.
Okay, so let's keep going.
Yeah, so where are we? So I left TikTok last summer. I pivoted again to I'm basically going from really big companies to middle size to small. So I went to a
You can't get smaller than your current one, Ayomi, just so you know. So, okay.
One person team.
One of one.
One of one. But I pivoted to a creator startup called Jelly Smack to be the chief of staff to the president there. Also got that job through LinkedIn DMs. I messaged the president and was like, hey, I should come work for you. You should hire me. And then he gave me my job. So DMs really, really do work in your favor if you put yourself out there. But that's a side note. But I'm pivoted to be this chief of staff role with the intention of one day going on to build my own startup. So that role pivot was very intentional. I'd been searching for a chief of staff role in the social media space, which is very niche. There are only a handful of those type roles because I wanted to learn how to build and run a startup. And it was great. I went there and again, consulting. By the way, the consulting to chief of staff pivot is very doable because consultants make great chief of staffs and that's your way in to a different company and potentially going down the startup path or into the executive path. So I would highly recommend that pivot if anyone's thinking of doing that. But had a good run there, but only for 6 months. Because I was laid off at the end of last summer. So I left TikTok for the startup role and was there for only 6 months and was laid off. And at that point, I'd been working on this idea for the past 6 to 8 months. Even when I was at TikTok, I was working on that idea. And then my boss at the startup also knew I was working on this idea. And he was like, what are you going to do next? And he was like, I think you should go take your severance and go all in on this. And again, it was kind of a no-brainer. My only options that it felt like to me was that I either go back and ask TikTok back for my job, which was a very viable, possible option, or I go all in. I didn't want to start again, join another company, because I loved my job at TikTok. And then, I went all in. So I'm now officially, 9 months, 10 months into being a full-time founder and a team of one with many people supporting me, but I'm the only full-time person working on this right now.
The journey is incredible. And like Parker said, it's one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on. We have so many similarities. You are where I eventually want to be with Parker one day. And I think you hit on a lot of good things. I want to tie up with a bow, though, if it's okay, the consulting phase of your life, because there are many young people that listen to Elevation Nation, some really cool entrepreneurs who are following their dreams, and we are proud of you guys. But more so a lot of young people who are starting their first corporate job out of school and just trying things out. And so I want you to hear Ayomi's story and hear the positives that came from learning the grind, learning how to work with people. That benefited her in her journey. And to Parker's point, it's never too late or sometimes too early to take a chance on yourself. So I just wanted to tie that up, that you learned a lot of great things, but you knew it was time to make a change and then start this more startup entrepreneurial path. And so now going into that, you mentioned DM with Jelly Smack got you your chief of staff role, and I would say a very good mentor. Getting laid off from a company cannot be easy, especially in a chief of staff role where you're so close every day with someone you look up to and then not having that role. But this person has stayed integral to, I would assume, a mentor in part of your life. How have you kind of maintained that relationship post getting laid off? Because that's a difficult thing to go through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's my work bestie. Honestly, I would do it all again. I would leave TikTok again and go to Jelly Smack just to be laid off in 6 months, because it got me this relationship that I have with Sean Atkins, who's the current president of Jelly Smack. He was the reason I took the job as well. Like, I wanted to work at a creative company in a chief of staff role, but I wanted to work for him specifically. He's a very impressive guy. He used to be the CEO of MTV when MTV was like absolutely killing it with MTV Cribs and the VMAs and all that kind of stuff. But he's a very impressive person. And he hired me knowing that I wanted to go build a startup. Like, when you tell someone during an interview that you're basically going to be here for a year, take as much knowledge as you can and then leave, you're probably not going to get that job. But he immediately got it. He was like, great, I'll help you. And maybe one day we'll run a business together. And I was like, okay, if this guy's crazy enough to respond to a LinkedIn DM, still interview me and give me a job after I've told him this, he must be a pretty good person. And yeah, obviously, I don't think either of us wanted to have that conversation. I remember exactly where I was sitting when he told me that, I was being let go and everything. But most times in life, it's not personal. Like, it's business, it's not personal. I think it's important to separate those two things. And I didn't see me being laid off as a knock on my abilities to do the role and work for him. And I saw it more as an opportunity to bet on myself, because I think that's a really scary thing to do. And ultimately, I've probably been putting that off for some time, and this kind of gave me the push I needed. And he then started advising me on my startup. So we'd have check-ins. He's always a text away. We have monthly phone calls, or whenever I need to chat, he's there. And to come real full circle, he's now my investor, along with the founders of Jelly Smack are also my investors. So it's a full circle moment from being laid off to being invested in. And he today
take away your job and give you some money here.
Kind of, yeah, it does seem like that, to go run my own thing. So no, I'm very lucky that the team are great. They've been very supportive of my startup work in the space. And I literally just texted him this morning saying, hey, like, do you know this person? I'd love an intro. And he's like, cool. So I think it's important to always maintain your relationships, even if you get laid off, and again, I understand not every situation is as pleasant as that, but I think you never know. This world is very small, and you never know when your paths might cross. And I made some amazing relationships at EY, for example. Some of my closest friends are still at EY. I went to a wedding, in fact, over the summer of one of my oldest friends there. So yeah, don't burn any bridges, and don't think that people are doing things out of, malintent. Sometimes it's just the push you need. Like, rejection is redirection and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, cliche, but I like it. I love it.
Right.
I think I really like what you said about how, even though you guys had a business relationship and then they had to let you go, unfortunately, you didn't take it personally because it was business. And it's funny, I had a conversation with one of my work colleagues about just feedback and getting feedback and giving feedback. And we said to each other that, obviously this is a very different scenario, but if we're giving feedback, we're giving it straight up, and both of us agreed, like, we had an agreement, like, we're not taking this personally. It has nothing to do with your character. Like, we're both like, we like each other. Like, I respect the hell out of you, but I'm telling you this straight up because I care about you and I respect you. And it has nothing to do from a personal standpoint. It's everything from a business standpoint, a growth standpoint. And then in this scenario, You know, they're telling you to go and start your own thing called Canopy, right? So let's talk about Canopy. What is Canopy? Let's hear the pitch. I know you've been icking at the elevator pitch because we've been, we teased it at the beginning.
So the official pitch, the official one-liner is that Canopy is an anonymous social app for content creators to be able to crowdsource information and spill the tea in a safe space. But I would translate that as it's a less chaotic version of Reddit just for social media creators. So if you have questions as a creator, whether it's pay transparency, how to monetize, when to get a manager, a place to vent, and everything sort of in between, you can go, it's an app. You can go and ask thousands of other creators how they've got through that situation, any advice and knowledge to share.
And you say it's anonymous.
It is anonymous. Yes, you post currently as your location and content niche. So you could post as a New York lifestyle creator, for example.
Wow, incredible. First of all, Sam, I know I told you today, Parker in the Park is back. I was inspired by our friend. Our friend just quit his job to go travel the world, and he's starting to post on TikTok about his travels. And, I was like, I'm inspired. I love being in the park. I live in New York City, so I'll go around the Central Park and I'll start taking videos. And today I was inspired to get going. So first of all, I'm downloading Canopy, no doubt.
Yeah,
I have a lot of questions.
Join us. Be part of our pilot.
Oh my gosh, totally. And then I know Sam has so many questions about content creation because he's the king over here of content creation.
Well, one, Ayomi already told you this. I think it's a great idea. There's this whole influx of young people who are, whether it's a side hustle and you're not making a ton of money, or you want to learn how to monetize, or you're going all in on it. It's, again, I want to go back to societal expectations, right? You are a doctor. You can talk to probably a couple neighbors, family, friends, uncles, cousins that you can get connected with, and you can know, here's how medical school applications work. Here's how much debt you're going to be in. Here's how you get into a residency, and you go from there. There's no one older than us that we can be like, hey, how do you get a brand deal? And then when do I need to make an LLC? And do I need a lawyer? Like, I'm talking and giving advice online, right? Like, this is all new. And it's, I would say Parker and I are semi-creators. We're trying our best to create content.
I'm putting the foot down. Ayomi, you got my back. We are creators.
I appreciate that.
Because you're creating a message and a voice that is unique to the world. That is content creation, Sam. I keep trying to push this on you. That is content creation. You're putting something out into the world. It's art. It's unique. Just because you don't have a lot of followers doesn't mean you're not a content creator.
100%. As long as you're building community and putting something out there, you're a creator.
Well, thank you both. All right. Thank you. I needed the slap on the butt to get going here. You're right. We're creators. And my point was, when we started, I was very nervous legally. Like, are we going to get sued? Like, do I need to protect ourselves? Should we make money? How do we make money?
That's your consulting brain.
Yeah. Added complexities, right, of working and having a full-time job. And so I just think it's an incredible idea to really empower a lot of young people who are trying to just follow their dreams and find fulfillment. How has it been with that incredible group of hungry young people so far with the beta and with kind of getting things off the ground?
Yeah, it's been awesome. We spent a lot of time this summer building community in person. So we were hosting in-person events for content creators to come and meet each other. We had a panel discussion. And that was a great way of getting word of mouth out about Canopy and starting to build our community in real life. We were able to build a wait list of a couple of thousand creators pretty quickly. And now we're just sort of onboarding those people on the wait lists into the app. So we launched 2 weeks ago, and already it's exactly how we thought it would be, if that makes sense. Like the topics of discussion, seeing other people support and celebrate each other, I think is probably my highlight. Like someone posted on Friday saying that they just signed like a 5 or 6 figure UGC deal, like a long-term partnership, and was just like, hey, like, I don't know if this is the right place to post it, but I got some great news this week. And then like a ton of people responded just to be like, hey, like, congrats. And also, can you share how you closed such a long-term deal? How did you structure the deal? How long have you been doing this for? And asked a bunch of questions for them to learn as well. But it was great to see people were just so excited for this anonymous user who you don't know. So yeah, no, already we're seeing really interesting discussions around usage rights and legal terms and how to monetize and which brands are great to work with and which ones don't pay you on time or ghost you. And again, as you said, it's such a nascent industry. There aren't really, especially from a TikTok side as well, it hasn't been around that long. There aren't that many quote unquote experts. You are figuring it out. And isn't it better to figure it out with people around you who get it and can help each other versus figuring it out, by yourself in your room?
So is it just digital creators, right? Anyone, not just on TikTok. I assume people who write on Twitter or write on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, we're starting with TikTok and Instagram creators, and
Gotcha.
primarily in short form. But we also have a bunch of LinkedIn creators already in there, some ex-creators, a couple of YouTubers.
Any handsome podcasters?
Well, apparently there's soon to be a few handsome podcasters joining the platform.
Hell yeah. I wonder who they're going to be.
I wonder. But yes, the plan is for us to become the home for content creators across all platforms, all niches. But we're starting with TikTok and Instagram creators.
Oh my gosh. Incredible. Okay. Now I want to talk more about the industry and your idea and your vision for the future of everything. So we're in 2023. In 3 years, I mean, was it 3 years, 4 years, right? Like the industry has gone like crazy, right? There's been so many lessons learned probably from so many different people. There's so much money getting thrown in. People are seeing all the opportunity. So where do you see it going next, where it's taking like that next step in the world of content creation? That's what I'm talking about.
I think it's around professionalizing the career. I think right now, when you think of career opportunities, it's like be a doctor, a consultant, a banker. Like those are, that's what people say. But 1 in 4 Gen Zs today want to become a content creator, but there isn't a clear career path in that industry. And I think we need to start treating content creation as a professional career. And a lot comes with that. Like I compare, Canopy was kind of born out of the idea that as a consultant on my first day, I was given a line manager, a buddy, a mentor, a peer group, all these people around me to help me be successful. And that is why I was successful, because I had a lot of people helping me. And that infrastructure does not exist today because you don't belong to an employer when you're a content creator. So for me, I'm trying to create that infrastructure. So for me, it's very much focused around education and, standardization. Is there a professional certification out there that Canopy leads, whereby you are now accredited and then, you're able to now work with certain tiers or brands based on that accreditation, for example. What does that look like? And I think we're seeing a big rising right now with the SAG-AFTRA strike going on, writer's strike. These creative industries need to, I think, be standardized to a certain degree to protect the welfare and the rights of these creatives.
It's a genius idea. Parker and I, of course, are so excited to get involved anonymously, so you won't know the silly questions that we ask. I know a ton of other elevators, members of Elevation Nation, are friends of yours and are part of the beta group. And so I'm just so proud of all the work that you've done to get this thing off the ground. And again, beyond our similar pasts, I also think we have very similar missions, where I felt and Parker feels that young adults are very alienated with our first few years as adults in the real world and are unsure how to find that fulfillment. And we wanted to help people feel more comfortable with asking those silly questions and not feeling alone. You are doing the exact same thing for creators. And so for that, I'm so excited to see your mission come to reality and for us to participate.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. And I definitely agree. Very similar missions. And I think it's really daunting getting started with anything, regardless of the stage of your career.
Yeah.
Even when you've got 10 years experience and you pivot, it's still daunting at that time. And I think it doesn't need to be. I think there you can put support in place, education in place, community in place, and that can help, elevate you.
Pun intended.
Always a con professional, comms is my bread and butter.
So 1 in 4 Gen Z, that's insane. 1 in 4 want to be in content creation. I guess it makes sense, but wow, incredible. Okay. I did not know that. That's insane. Well, let's move to our next section, the rapid fire. We got 3 questions we're going to throw right at you, Ayomi. And then we're going to wrap it up with our favorite section. So, rapid fire. Let's see. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Thanks for putting this in, Sam. I'm going to take it from you. What is your TikTok feed right now?
Roman Empire, and then Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce dating, being papped around New York, going to the game.
Yeah.
I think that's the most fascinating thing about TikTok. I have similar feed as well, which I guess we're looking at similar stuff, but Parker has a lot of dogs singing in parks. I think, is that your most recent, Parker?
That's the, Parker in the park. We just got to bring it back. More dogs in the park. Other cool things happening in the park, because there's always awesome stuff happening in the park. No, right now is my feeds all chefs like cooking really, really fast with the fast jump cuts. Like,
oh yeah, I like that too.
Oh my God. It's very satisfying. But what's crazy is on Man vs. Food, not Man vs. Food, Diners, Dives, and Drives, you never see him eat the actual food and swallow. Same with these guys. They never swallow the food. They just chew it. Watch. I'm telling you. It's crazy.
Now that you've said this, it's probably going to appear on my For You page, because my phone's probably listening to me. So I'll probably see that tonight.
Probably.
Definitely. Okay, Ayomi, I know you took an opportunity to, well, you've moved everywhere at this point, but you just recently moved from a city you love, New York, across to Washington for a bit here, and going to be on the West Coast for at least a little while. I know New York is known for their food. I know you are missing one of your favorite meals or New York restaurants. Give a little recommendation. What comes to mind?
Oh my gosh, everything comes to mind. Right? New York dining is the best thing in the entire world. Okay, my gosh, this is a hard one. I would say I absolutely love Missy Pasta, and I used to live in Williamsburg, right around the corner of it, and they just opened up a second outpost, which has an amazing patio. So you should go there. It's really, really good if you love like pasta. That's my absolute favorite. And then there's a really amazing Korean place called Jeju, which is my absolute favorite. And I waited up until midnight to get a reservation 2 nights in a row, because the first night I didn't I missed it within the first 30 seconds. Jeju in West Village is Michelin starred, but it's $20 for a bowl of amazing ramen.
Jeju?
Yeah, Jeju, like the Korean island.
Oh my God.
We're literally writing this down in our notes app right now so we can take his fiance.
It's the chicest place. It's so chic. It's so nice. And the most incredible ramen, if you like ramen.
Love ramen. I mean, I'm just fascinated by just like finding like little gems like that in the city. People love, but it's $20. It's like crazy. Yeah. Like, wow. Okay. Last rapid fire. We asked this question to every single person on Elevation Nation because Sam and I love to read. What is one book recommendation that you have for Elevation Nation?
So I'm in this whole startup founder journey. So all I've been reading are startup founder books. I absolutely love a book called That Will Never Work by the original co-founder and original CEO of Netflix, Mark Randolph.
And just like that, we add it to our reading list. Thank you. It's the best way to get good books. Ask everybody that's really cool one book. Yeah. You're going to have an incredible reading list.
It's an amazing story.
That Will Never Work. I read a book by Reed Hastings.
Startup of You?
No Rules. Rules?
Well, yes, I've also read that. I feel like when you're in that book world, everyone has similar books or has read these books in like the startup tech career type business books. I am that person. I love those books.
I have one more extension question off of this question. Do you ever read about other people's like stories, like you just autobiography to learn like really deep about individuals and their business journey, or is it more like learning from people's lessons that they have and whatever business that they created?
I would say the latter. I really love stories written by founders or former founders around like how do they how do they build this company and turn it from like zero to $1 billion business.
Wow.
It's like another great book is by Andy Dunn, who is the founder of Bonobo's like
Yeah.
dance, and it's called Burn Rate, and it's an incredible story around like founder mental health and like the perils and things that come with it. But yeah, I love those sort of stories. So it's part personal because you get to hear the personal journey of that individual as a founder, but it also relates to like how do they manage themselves while trying to build this crazy business.
This life's not easy, everybody listening.
It is not.
Entrepreneurship's hard. It's
As
difficult.
I'm learning. As I'm learning.
All right, Ayomi, our last question, our favorite question. Every single member of Elevation Nation, which you are about to be the latest inductee into the nation, we ask them this question, their mental motto, a phrase that you live your life by. So, Ayomi, what is your mental motto?
I'm going to just say that I'm going to preface this by saying I do not think this is the best way to be living, and it's not for everyone, but for me, it is that, you know, treat life like an extreme sport in the pursuit of greatness.
That's your own quote, right? I have never heard that
It is,
before.
but that is not, by the way, I'm not really endorsing that because my husband says this to me all the time. He was like, you're insane. And like, I have this written up on my wall, and he's like, you're a crazy person. Like, don't do this. But that is what I believe. And I feel like that mindset has got me to where I am and will get me to where I'm going.
I'm writing it down.
Elevating is what we call it. Right? I love it.
Exactly.
That's amazing. And I'm sure, you know, what's beautiful about mental fortitude and the mental motto is that when times are great, you can revert back to that. And like, I still got to go and do crazy things. And when times are really shitty and hard and difficult, you can go back to the mental motto and it means a completely different thing, but you know at its core what it means for you to move forward and do crazy shit in the pursuit of greatness, right? Like,
yeah, 100%. And again, I wouldn't necessarily take it literally. Like I do sleep eat, and, you know, have a life as well. But I think that mindset, as you said, at its core is really important. Like it's about the grind, the hustle, the resilience. You know, you have to really believe. You have to really believe that you can make the impossible happen, because otherwise, no one else is going to believe that.
It's a beautiful message. It's an incredible mental motto. Ayomi, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us this evening. God only knows you got a ton of things to do in your startup grind right now, but hopefully this was a nice little break for you. We're just so honored to welcome you as the latest member of Elevation Nation, and I can't wait for you to get to New York and me to get to New York, and we're going to have to go get some Korean ramen.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Thank you so much for having me. And honestly, this has been like the highlight of my day. And thanks for having me. I hope it was useful, and I really love what you guys are doing. I wish I had this when I was starting my career, because I didn't have anything. I was just sort of like blind leading the blind. I guess I'll go into consulting and figure it out. But I wish I had the opportunity to hear from other people to understand what paths are actually out there potentially for you. So I love what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, Elevation Nation. Until next week. Peace.